So right now I am walking along the banks of the Danube in Budapest, Hungary. And I gotta say, this is probably one of the most beautiful places that I've ever seen in my life. Seriously, this place is just absolutely amazing. If you guys ever get a chance to come somewhere and see something with a lot of history, come here. Check this place out. Budapest is really something, especially in the summer. You'll have a lot of fun here, especially if you come in the summer. I'm telling you, gents, check this place out. So this is a local beer called Dreher beer, and yeah, Dreher, and it's Pilsner, and it's actually got a really nice taste to it. In price, it's about the same as PBR, but it tastes much better than Pound Blue. So if you visit Hungary, buy yourself a glass of Dreher. It's very good.
Prisoners in chains. Actually, the official name bridge is the Széchenyi Chain Bridge, and it was named after the count who proposed its construction. Count Széchenyi was a great traveler. He saw a big gap in development between Western countries and Hungary, and he sacrificed his entire life for the modernization of the country.
Thank you.
So I'm on a Danube river cruise here in Budapest, Hungary, and the spread is actually really nice. It's really good.
You want salad?
What that is, it's not labeled, sadly enough. This is particularly good.
National Theater. The new National Theater inspired a lot of polemics. A left-wing government decided to build a hyper-modern National Theater in the middle of the city center. The right-wing opposition didn't like the idea, of course. The downtown construction had already started when the opposition won the elections. The construction work stopped, leaving a big hole in the middle of the city. And the new right-wing government began to build a new structure here on the riverbank. The downtown construction site was dubbed the National Hole by locals and remained unfinished for some years. Palace of Arts. The building of the Palace of Arts has two main functions. It houses a hyper-modern concert hall where the acoustics can be modified according to the orchestra that gives a concert. A soloist requires different acoustics than a choir or a symphonic orchestra. The concert hall has the shape of a whale, so that's the second whale of the Danube. The building also houses the so-called Ludwig collection, a collection of artworks from the 20th century. The Ludwigs were a German couple that became rich from the chocolate industry. Their story is a typical story of the Cold War. They started to collect 20th century artworks, and their mission was to help communication between artists of the East and those of the West. What they bought in the East was exhibited in the West, and what they bought in the West was exhibited in the East. So in Budapest, you can see mainly Western artworks, work by Andy Warhol, Roy Lichtenstein, some Picasso, and so on.
So Cool though. Altogether a really nice. Really nice spread. Try some of this grease kind of quick, see what that's all about. Had the second time chicken. Super good. Haven't even got into Caesar salad yet. It's really good.
Use mine.
Catholics had no influence on these lands, so approximately 2/3 of the population was converted to Calvinism. One can recognize their churches very easily. They put a mace on the top of the church, not a cross. A mace, the medieval weapon, doesn't seem very friendly, you might think. To find the explanation, we have to go back to the time of the counter-reforms led by the Habsburgs of Austria. As the Turkish presence in Buda meant a great threat for Vienna, the Habsburgs decided to push the Turks to the east. They liberated Hungary in 1686, but as previously mentioned, the majority of Hungarians were already Calvinists, and the Habsburgs had a very strong Catholic identity. So they started to re-Catholicize the country. We call this movement the Counter-Reforms. During the Counter-Reforms, there were 50 Calvinist priests that refused to change their faith, and they were forced to march to Venice, Italy, where they were sold to be slaves. Their guards had maces, and since this event, the weapon was represented on the tops of their churches to show that the strong belief of the Calvinists cannot be changed by force.
Interesting.
It is interesting.
What is the mace do?
What is this? The mace was a little round ball at the top.
Okay, yeah, those two.
You know, like a little round ball they used to swing around, you know, and kill each other with. I want to know what that is back there, though. See in the background,
that thing, yeah.
back there. I mean, that's beyond impressive. That's crazy. I'll zoom in on that one more time so people can actually kind of see it. Although it's obscured by that tall building, we'll be going by that in just a minute.
Round two.
They say that the sum spent on this single building would have been enough to build an entire town of 40,000 inhabitants. The idea was to use exclusively Hungarian materials, except for the 8 monolithic granite columns that were sent as a present by the King of Sweden. But because of this strict condition, the use of local materials, the limestone covering the building blackened too quickly, so that renovations of the facade have been more or less constant since 1927. The main facade was finished recently, and for that occasion, the building received a new must-see floodlight. One of the curiosities of the building is its ventilation system. Around the building, there are wells that connect through underground tunnels with the inside. A constant 21 to 23 degrees can be maintained by putting 8 tons of ice in these tunnels on every warm day, which seems to be the best temperature for hard headwork. So any counterproductive legal regulations should be blamed on a malfunction of the ventilation system. With its size, the Hungarian parliament is the second biggest in Europe. You might ask the question, why does a tiny little country have a parliament as big as that? There are several reasons. First of all, you should know that it was a bicameral parliament with 2 meeting rooms for the lower and upper houses. Since 1944, only the lower house has operated. The northern wing, the old meeting room of the Senate, is rarely used. Another reason for its size.
Also, it is interesting to note, it's 96 meters tall at its tallest point, and it has 365 towers, each for one day of the year. A very cool building. Lots of symbolism in it. It's very cool. What they call the White House. It used to be occupied by the communists. Now the MPs are based there. Isn't that ironic? Those of you who ever get to come to Budapest, I highly recommend paying hell, I don't even know, I think it was like $20 or $25. I know no more than 30. But I paid to come on this lunch cruise, and as you see from this video and the previous one, they have quite a nice spread that's laid out for you. And you get to just kind of tool down the Danube at a moderate speed, you know, and slow enough to take pictures and video, obviously, and you know, you get to see a lot of the sights, and they also come over the loudspeaker and explain a little bit of the history as you've heard in some of the previous segments of this video and in other videos. And you can learn a little bit as well. It's a nice, relaxed atmosphere. A few drinks are included. They give you a glass of champagne when you come aboard. They give you some water, and they also give you a beer and like a soft drink. Now, if you want extra water, or extra champagne, or extra beer, all that, you have to pay extra for it. But there's a few drinks anyway that are included in the price. So, here's the Vallon Illumination and the Vallon Impression. These are some huge, huge ships. I don't know exactly what their purpose is. As you guys can see, they're huge ships. They're really big. Looks like they have staterooms in them. So these might be some ships that do the very long, you know, like multi-day Danube cruises or something like that. Maybe I would guess. I know there are a few operators that do multi-day cruises, you know, up and down the Danube to, like cruises that go into other countries. You know, they do them for, you know, a few days or a week or something like that.